The sound of muffled laughter drifts from the living room as I pull into the driveway. It's been a long day at work, and all I want is to see my wife, Emily, and our kids, Daniel and Sophie. For the last few weeks, I've been feeling a growing distance between Emily and me. Tonight, I'm determined to close that gap. Stepping into the house, I immediately notice the scene in the living room. Emily is seated on the couch, her posture relaxed and her smile a little too wide. Opposite her, the tutor we hired for Daniel, Alex, leans forward, his tone low and conspiratorial as they share a joke. Sophie is nowhere to be seen, and Daniel's books lie untouched on the table. "Hey," I say, forcing my tone to stay casual. Both their heads snap up. Emily's smile falters for a split second before she recovers, brushing a strand of hair behind her ear. "Hi, honey," she says, her voice too bright. "You're home early." I glance at Alex. He shifts awkwardly in his seat, avoiding my gaze. "Just wanted to spend some time with the family," I reply, trying to ignore the knot forming in my stomach. Alex stands abruptly, gathering his things. "I should get going." "Thanks for the coffee, Mrs. Taylor," he mutters. The way he avoids looking at me as he shuffles toward the door sets my teeth on edge. As the door closes behind him, I turn to Emily. "Where are the kids?" "Daniel's upstairs and Sophie is at a sleepover," she says quickly, standing to tidy the coffee table. Her movements are rushed, almost frantic. I watch her carefully. "How's the tutoring going?" She hesitates, just a beat too long. "Good. Alex is great with Daniel." The unease in my chest tightens. Something's off, but I can't put my finger on it. Instead of pressing further, I let it go, deciding to keep an eye on things. That night, as Emily sleeps beside me, I find myself staring at the ceiling, replaying the evening over and over in my head. The look on Alex's face, Emily's nervous energy, it doesn't add up. A flicker of doubt worms its way into my thoughts. I shake it off, telling myself I'm overthinking things. But deep down, I know something isn't right. The following days bring little relief to the nagging doubt gnawing at the back of my mind. Emily seems more distracted than ever, her phone always within reach, and our conversations are reduced to hollow exchanges about groceries or school schedules. Daniel's tutoring sessions continue, but I notice a subtle shift in her demeanor whenever Alex is around. One evening, as I sit in my home office finishing up work, I hear muffled laughter from the kitchen. Quietly, I walk down the hall and peer around the corner. Emily and Alex are standing close. Too close? She leans against the counter, her head tilted back in laughter, while Alex's gaze lingers on her in a way that sends a chill down my spine. I step into the kitchen, clearing my throat. Emily jerks back as if burned, and Alex straightens, his face flushing deep red. "What's so funny?" I ask, keeping my tone light, though my heart pounds against my ribs. Emily forces a smile, her voice breezy. "Oh, nothing. Alex was just telling me a story about his college days." "Right, Alex?" Yeah." Alex stammers, grabbing his bag. "I should get going. Thanks again for everything, Mrs. Taylor." "Mr. Taylor." He nods at me briefly before practically bolting out the door. I turn to Emily, folding my arms. "Everything okay?" She avoids my eyes, busying herself with rearranging the mugs on the counter. "Of course. Why wouldn't it be?" I don't press her further, but my chest feels like it's caving in. The once unshakable trust between us is eroding faster than I can grasp. That night, as we lie in bed, I scroll through my phone, unable to sleep. Against my better judgment, I consider checking hers. The thought feels wrong, invasive, but the ache in my gut tells me I need answers. The next day, while Emily's in the shower, I spot her phone on the nightstand. My hands tremble as I pick it up, debating whether to unlock it. I try her usual password, our anniversary date. It works. What I see confirms my worst fears. There, in her messages, is a long thread with Alex. Most of it is harmless, casual chat about tutoring schedules and Daniel's progress. But as I scroll further, the tone shifts. Compliments about her smile, jokes that feel too personal, and a heart emoji from Alex that makes my blood run cold. Emily's response is coy, not outright reciprocating but not shutting it down either. I hear the water shut off and quickly lock the phone, placing it back on the nightstand. My mind races as I try to process what I've just seen. I'm not ready to confront her yet. I need more proof, more clarity. Later that day, I call a friend of mine, Mark, who works in cybersecurity. Mark, I need a favor, I say, my voice low. What's up? He asks, concerned. I hesitate for a moment. I think something's going on with Emily. I need to know the truth. Mark pauses, then says, I've got your back. Let me know what you need. Hanging up the phone, I feel a mix of guilt and resolve. Whatever is happening, I owe it to myself and to our kids to uncover the truth. The tension between Emily and me grows heavier with each passing day. She acts normal. At least she tries to. But I can't shake the feeling that her smiles are too rehearsed, her words too calculated. The messages with Alex replay in my mind like a broken record. Each time, they sting a little more. Mark calls me later that evening, his tone brisk and professional. All right, here's what I can do. I'll set up some basic monitoring on the Wi-Fi. It'll log activity, so if she's messaging or emailing anyone, you'll know. It's discreet, and she'll never find out. I hesitate, my conscience warring with my desperation for answers. I don't know, man. Isn't that crossing a line? Mark's voice softens. Look, if you trust her, you won't find anything. But if something's going on, you need to know. This is your family we're talking about. I agree, albeit reluctantly. That night, while Emily sleeps, I sneak downstairs and follow Mark's instructions to install the software. My heart pounds the entire time, but I convince myself it's necessary. Over the next week, I begin piecing together the puzzle. Alex's name appears frequently in the logs. Messaging apps, emails, they're all there. One message exchange catches my eye. Alex, can't stop thinking about our last conversation. You're amazing, Emily. He doesn't know how lucky he is. Emily, Alex, you can't say things like that. This is already too much. Alex, you know how I feel. I drop everything for you. The words blur as my grip on the phone tightens. My stomach churns, and my hands shake. This isn't just innocent banter, it's emotional infidelity. But Emily's responses give me pause. She's not reciprocating, not fully. Still, she isn't shutting him down either. It feels like betrayal by omission. That weekend, Emily tells me she's taking the kids to her mother's house. She's been asking to see them, she explains, avoiding my gaze. I'll be back tomorrow. I nod, playing along. Of course. Give her my love. As the door closes behind them, I spring into action. I call Mark. I need you to track her location. Are you sure about this? He asks, his voice tinged with concern. Yes. She left her phone at home, but I know Alex will find a way to contact her. Mark agrees, and within minutes, he calls back. She's at a cafe downtown. You want me to check if Alex is nearby? No, I say quickly. I'll handle it. I grab my car keys, adrenaline coursing through me. Parking a block away from the cafe, I watch from the shadows as Emily sits at a corner table, her body language tense. Alex joins her minutes later, and they lean in close, their conversation too animated to be casual. My chest tightens, and a million scenarios play out in my head. Should I confront them? Demand an explanation? My instinct screams at me to barge in, but I resist. Instead, I snap a few photos with my phone. Proof. As I drive home, my hands grip the steering wheel so tightly they ache. The betrayal is no longer a suspicion. It's real. But I can't afford to explode in anger. Not yet. My kids deserve better than chaos. That night, I barely sleep. I keep thinking about the best way to confront her, to salvage what's left of our relationship, or at least protect the kids from the fallout. When she returns the next day, I'm calm, my expression carefully neutral. She hugs the kids and asks me how my evening went. I smile, but inside, I'm anything but composed. I know the confrontation is coming, but I need to be strategic. The house feels like a minefield the next morning. Every glance, every word exchanged between Emily and me feels loaded with unspoken tension. I know she can sense something is off, but she's playing it cool, sticking to her routine like nothing's changed. It's maddening. After breakfast, I decide it's time to confront her. not with anger, but with a calmness that will leave no room for manipulation or denial. I find her in the kitchen, sipping her coffee as sunlight streams through the window. She looks serene, as if the last few weeks of suspicion and deceit never happened. It only fuels my determination. "Emily," I start, my tone measured. She looks up, startled by the gravity in my voice. "We need to talk." Her fingers tighten around the coffee mug. "Sure. What's on your mind?" I sit across from her, my gaze steady. "What's going on with you and Alex?" The question lands like a thunderclap. Her eyes widen, and a flicker of panic crosses her face before she quickly composes herself. "What do you mean?" she asks, her voice too casual. "You know exactly what I mean," I say, leaning forward. "The messages, the cafe, the way you act around him. I've seen enough to know something's going on, Emily. I just want the truth." Her face pales, and for a moment, she looks like she might come clean. But then she shakes her head, her expression hardening. "You've been spying on me?" she accuses, deflecting. "This isn't about me," I snap, my calm slipping. "It's about you and whatever the hell you're doing with that man." Her voice rises, defensive and indignant. "Alex is just a friend. He's helping Daniel with his studies, and yes, we've talked outside of tutoring sessions. But it's nothing like what you're imagining." "Then explain the messages," I counter, pulling out my phone and showing her the screenshots. Her eyes dart to the screen, and I see the flicker of guilt she can't hide. "I told him to stop," she says finally, her voice trembling. "I didn't encourage him." "Didn't encourage him?" I echo, my voice laced with disbelief. "Emily, you let him believe he had a chance. You didn't shut him down. That's encouragement." She looks down, her hands trembling. "I didn't want to hurt him," she whispers, tears pooling in her eyes. "I thought I could handle it, that it would fizzle out on its own. But you didn't think about what this would do to us," I say, my voice breaking. "To our family." The weight of my words hangs in the air, and for the first time, I see her facade crack. Tears spill down her cheeks as she buries her face in her hands. "I'm so sorry," she sobs. "I never meant for it to go this far." I watch her, torn between anger and heartbreak. Part of me wants to yell, to demand answers to every question swirling in my mind. But another part of me, the part that still loves her, just wants to understand. "Why, Emily?" I ask softly. "Why did this happen?" She looks up, her face streaked with tears. "I don't know," she whispers. "I guess I felt invisible, like I wasn't enough anymore. Alex made me feel seen, but I swear I never intended to hurt you." Her words cut deep, but they also bring clarity. This isn't just about Alex. It's about us, about cracks in our marriage that neither of us saw until it was too late. "I need some time to process this," I say, standing. "I'm going to take the kids out for the day. We'll talk more tonight." She nods, her shoulders slumped in defeat. As I leave the kitchen, I feel a mix of relief and dread. The confrontation is far from over, but at least the truth is out. The drive with the kids is quiet, though Daniel and Sophie chatter in the back seat about their plans for the day. Their laughter is a stark contrast to the storm brewing inside me. I force a smile when Sophie asks if we can stop for ice cream, trying to push my turmoil to the background. They deserve a semblance of normalcy, even if my world feels like it's crumbling. We spend the afternoon at the park, the kids running around while I sit on a bench, lost in thought. Emily's words keep echoing in my head. I felt invisible. It wasn't just a justification. It was a mirror reflecting back our neglect of each other. Somewhere along the way, between work, the kids, and life, we had lost the connection that once anchored us. But does that excuse what she did? As the sun dips lower in the sky, I check my phone and see a text from Mark. "Mark, you good? Need anything else?" I hesitate before replying. "Me, thanks for your help. I think I've got it from here." Mark's response comes quickly. "Mark, you know where to find me if you need backup." I appreciate his loyalty, but I know this is a battle I have to fight on my own. Back home, I make dinner for the kids while Emily hovers in the living room, her presence a heavy shadow. She tries to join us at the table, but Daniel asks if he can eat in his room. Sophie follows suit, leaving just the two of us in awkward silence. We need to talk, I say once the dishes are done. She nods, her eyes swollen from crying. We sit on the couch, the tension thick enough to choke us both. I need to know everything, I say, my voice low but firm. No more half-truths or deflections. Just the truth. Emily takes a deep breath, her hands twisting nervously in her lap. It started innocently, she begins. After tutoring sessions, Alex would hang around to talk. At first, it was just small talk about work, about Daniel. But then he started opening up about his life, his struggles. He said I made him feel understood, and I didn't stop it. I clenched my jaw, resisting the urge to interrupt. Did it ever go beyond talking? She shakes her head vehemently. No, I swear, it was never physical. But emotionally, I let it get too close. The confession stings, but it also brings a strange sense of relief. At least the betrayal hadn't crossed that line, yet. Why didn't you tell me? I ask, my voice cracking. I was ashamed, she admits, and scared. I didn't want to lose you, but I didn't know how to fix what was broken between us. Her words hang in the air, raw and vulnerable. For the first time in weeks, I see a glimpse of the woman I fell in love with, the woman who now seems so far away. I can't just sweep this under the rug, I say finally. You've broken my trust, Emily, and trust isn't something you rebuild overnight. Tears stream down her face as she nods. I know. I'll do whatever it takes to make this right. Her sincerity tugs at me, but the anger and hurt still simmer beneath the surface. This isn't just about you and me, I say. It's about our family. The kids deserve better than this. I'll cut all contact with Alex, she says quickly. I'll even find a new tutor for Daniel. Whatever it takes. I nod, though it feels like a small step in a much longer journey. We'll take this one day at a time, I say. But don't mistake my willingness to try for forgiveness. That's something you'll have to earn. She reaches for my hand, but I pull away. I need some space, I say, standing. I'm sleeping in the guest room tonight. The look on her face is heartbreaking, but I don't let myself dwell on it. I head upstairs, my mind racing with the enormity of what lies ahead. Forgiveness might be possible, but forgetting? That's a different story. The next morning, the house is eerily quiet. I wake up in the guest room, disoriented by the unfamiliar surroundings. The events of the previous night hit me like a wave, and for a moment, I consider staying in bed to avoid facing the day. But the sound of Daniel and Sophie stirring upstairs reminds me that life doesn't pause for heartbreak. I head downstairs to find Emily already in the kitchen, her face pale and drawn. She looks up as I enter, her eyes searching mine for any sign of hope. I say nothing, focusing instead on pouring myself a cup of coffee. I'll tell Alex today, she says softly, breaking the silence. That it's over. Completely. Good, I reply curtly. I can feel her flinch at the coldness in my tone, but I can't bring myself to offer anything warmer. Not yet. After breakfast, I decide to take the kids out for a while. Let's go to the museum, I suggest, trying to infuse some cheer into my voice. Sophie lights up, and even Daniel manages a small smile. Emily stays behind, claiming she has errands to run. As I load the kids into the car, I catch her watching us from the window, her expression a mix of longing and regret. I look away, focusing on the road ahead. At the museum, I do my best to be present for the kids, but my thoughts keep drifting back to Emily. I wonder if she's really going to cut ties with Alex, or if she's simply saying what she thinks I want to hear. The doubt gnaws at me, making it hard to enjoy the day. When we return home in the evening, Emily is waiting in the living room. She stands as we enter, her posture tentative. Can we talk? She asks quietly. I nod, telling the kids to go upstairs. Once they're out of earshot, I sit on the couch, waiting for her to speak. I talked to Alex, she says, her voice trembling. I told him it's over and that we can't have any contact going forward. He wasn't happy, but he understood. I study her face, searching for any signs of deceit. Did he try to argue? I ask. She hesitates before nodding. He said he cared about me, that he thought we had something special, but I told him I'm committed to fixing my marriage. to fixing us. Her words should bring relief, but they feel hollow. It's a start, I say flatly. But this isn't just about ending things with Alex. It's about proving to me that I can trust you again, that you're willing to put in the effort to rebuild what you've broken. She nods vigorously, tears brimming in her eyes. I will. I swear I will. For the next few days, we settle into a tense routine. I sleep in the guest room, and our conversations are limited to logistical matters about the kids and the house. Emily tries to engage me in deeper discussions, but I keep my responses clipped, unwilling to open myself up until I see real changes. One evening, as I'm working late in the study, Emily knocks softly on the door. "Can I come in?" she asks. I nod, gesturing to the chair across from me. She sits, wringing her hands nervously. "I've been doing a lot of thinking," she begins, "about why this happened, why I let things get so out of control." I lean back in my chair, crossing my arms, and she takes a deep breath. I realized I've been selfish. I let my insecurities and need for validation cloud my judgment. But that's not an excuse for what I did. I hurt you, and I hurt our family, and I'm so sorry. Her apology feels sincere, but it's not enough to erase the pain. What are you going to do about it? I ask. Words are easy, Emily. Actions are what matter. She nods. I'm going to start therapy, individual and couples, if you're willing. I want to understand myself better and figure out how to make things right. Her willingness to seek help is a step in the right direction, but I'm not ready to commit to anything just yet. I'll think about it, I say, my voice guarded. As she leaves the room, I feel a glimmer of something I haven't felt in weeks. Hope. It's faint and fragile, but it's there. Maybe, just maybe, we can find our way back from this. The days that follow are a delicate balancing act. Emily keeps her word about starting therapy, scheduling her first individual session with a counselor. She shares the details with me, offering transparency I hadn't seen in weeks. I nod, acknowledging her effort, but part of me is still hesitant to believe it will make a difference. The damage runs deep, and the scars are still fresh. Meanwhile, I focus on the kids. Daniel and Sophie are blissfully unaware of the tension between us, though I catch Sophie watching me with a puzzled expression now and then. I make a mental note to sit down with them soon, to explain the changes without dragging them into the ugliness of it all. One evening, Emily approaches me cautiously as I'm reading on the couch. "Can I sit?" she asks. I shrug, keeping my eyes on the book. "Sure." She hesitates before settling beside me, her hands clasped tightly in her lap. "I've been thinking a lot about what you said, about proving to you that I'm serious about fixing this." I glance at her, waiting for her to continue. "I called my mom," she says. "She's agreed to take the kids for a weekend, so we can have some time to talk. Just the two of us." Her suggestion surprises me. The idea of spending an entire weekend hashing out our issues is both daunting and appealing. What would that even look like? I ask, closing my book. She fidgets with the hem of her sleeve. "Maybe we could go somewhere neutral, a cabin or a hotel, somewhere away from the house and all the reminders of everything." Her voice trails off, and I can see the vulnerability in her eyes. She's trying, and for the first time, I feel a flicker of genuine gratitude. "I'll think about it," I say, keeping my tone neutral. Her face falls slightly, but she nods. That's all I'm asking. The following week, we finalize the plans. Emily books a small cabin a few hours away, and I reluctantly agree to go. The kids are thrilled about their mini vacation with their grandmother, blissfully unaware of the underlying reason for it. As we pack the car, I catch Emily stealing glances at me, her expression a mix of hope and fear. The drive to the cabin is quiet, the air between us thick with unspoken tension. I keep my eyes on the road, occasionally glancing at her as she stares out the window. I wonder if she's as nervous as I am. When we arrive, the cabin is cozy but small, its rustic charm a stark contrast to the chaos swirling in my head. Emily unpacks while I step out onto the deck, breathing in the crisp mountain air. It's peaceful here, almost too peaceful for the storm brewing inside me. That evening, we sit across from each other at the small dining table, a bottle of wine between us. The conversation starts slow, hesitant, as if we're both afraid to say the wrong thing. I know I've said it before, Emily begins, her voice barely above a whisper. But I need you to know how sorry I am. For everything. I nod, swirling the wine in my glass. I know you're sorry, Emily. But sorry doesn't erase what happened. It doesn't rebuild trust. Her eyes glisten with unshed tears. I know, but I'm willing to do whatever it takes to rebuild it. To prove to you that I'm still the woman you fell in love with. Her words hit a nerve, and I feel my defenses crack, just a little. The woman I fell in love with wouldn't have let this happen, I say, my voice tight. She flinches but doesn't look away. You're right, she admits. But that woman is still here. She just got lost along the way. The honesty in her words disarms me, and for a moment, I see a glimmer of the connection we once shared. It's fragile, like a thread stretched too thin, but it's there. I want to believe you, I say finally. I really do, but it's going to take time. Emily nods, her tears spilling over. I'll wait as long as it takes. As the night wears on, we talk more openly than we have in months. About the cracks in our marriage, the moments we let each other slip away. It's painful, but it's also cathartic. For the first time in weeks, I feel like we're moving in the right direction. The cabin feels both claustrophobic and comforting as the weekend progresses. It forces us to confront each other, to face the truths we've avoided for too long. With the kids at Emily's mom's, there's no buffer, no distractions. Just the two of us and the raw reality of our fractured marriage. On the second day, as we sip coffee on the small deck overlooking the forest, Emily breaks the silence. Do you remember when we used to come to places like this? Just the two of us, before the kids? Her voice is wistful, tinged with sadness. I nod, staring out at the trees. I do. It feels like a lifetime ago. She leans forward, her elbows resting on her knees. Back then, we were so connected. It didn't matter where we were or what we were doing. Just being together was enough. Her words stir something in me. Memories of late-night talks under the stars, stolen kisses on hiking trails, and the way we used to laugh without a care in the world. But those memories are tainted now, overshadowed by the betrayal. What happened to us, Emily? I ask, my voice quiet. When did we lose that? She hesitates, searching for the right words. I think we got comfortable, she says finally. Comfortable in a way that made us stop trying. Life got busy, and we stopped making time for each other. I consider her words, knowing she's not wrong. Somewhere along the way, we let the demands of work, parenting, and everyday life take precedence over our relationship. But even so, her choices feel like a betrayal of the bond we once shared. It still doesn't excuse what you did, I say, my tone firm but not unkind. We both made mistakes, but you crossed a line that can't be uncrossed. She nods, tears glistening in her eyes. I know, and I'll regret it for the rest of my life. But I'm here, fighting for us, because I believe we can get through this. Do you? Her question catches me off guard. Do I believe we can get through this? I want to, for the sake of our kids and the life we've built together. But belief isn't enough. Trust needs to be rebuilt, and that's not something that happens overnight. I don't know, I admit, the words heavy on my tongue. I want to believe we can, but it's not just up to me. It's up to you to prove that I can trust you again. She reaches across the table, her hand hovering near mine. For a moment, I consider pulling away, but I let her touch me. Her fingers are warm, trembling slightly as they brush against mine. I'll do whatever it takes, she whispers. Therapy, time, space, whatever you need. Her sincerity is palpable, and for the first time, I allow myself to entertain the possibility of forgiveness. It's a daunting thought, one that fills me with equal parts hope and fear. That evening, as we sit by the fireplace, Emily pulls out a photo album she brought with her. It's filled with pictures from the early years of our relationship, our wedding, trips we took, moments that feel like they belong to a different lifetime. We were happy, she says, her voice thick with emotion. I want us to find that again. I flip through the pages, memories flooding back with each turn. I can see the love in our smiles, the bond we once had. It feels distant now, like something out of a dream, but it's a reminder of what we're fighting for. We were happy, I echo, closing the album. But we can't go back. If we move forward, it has to be as new versions of ourselves. Stronger, wiser, and more honest. She nods, her expression resolute. I'm willing to do that. Are you? I hesitate, the weight of the decision pressing down on me. I'm willing to try, I say finally. It's not a declaration of forgiveness, but it's a start. As we sit together in the flickering light of the fire, I feel a glimmer of something I thought I'd lost: hope. Returning home from the cabin is surreal. The tension between Emily and me has shifted. It's not gone, far from it, but there's a new layer of understanding, a fragile foundation upon which we might rebuild. The kids are ecstatic to see us, running to hug me as soon as we walk through the door. How was Grandma's? I ask, lifting Sophie into my arms. Fun, she chirps. We made cookies and played board games. But I missed you. I glance at Emily, who's watching us with a soft smile. I missed you too, kiddo. That evening, as the kids sleep and the house falls quiet, Emily approaches me in the living room. She sits on the armrest of the chair I'm in, her hands fidgeting nervously. I wanted to say thank you, she begins, for giving me a chance to fix this. I'm not doing it for you, I reply, my tone even. I'm doing it for the kids, and for us, if there's still an us to save. Her expression falters, but she nods. I understand, and I'm going to prove to you that this is worth fighting for. Her resolve is admirable, but the wounds are still fresh. One day at a time, I say, standing to head upstairs. Good night, Emily. She watches me leave, her gaze heavy with unspoken words. I can feel her hope, but I'm not ready to meet it yet. The following weeks are a mix of small victories and lingering doubts. Emily starts therapy, coming home from her sessions quieter but more thoughtful. She tells me about the progress she's making, though I can see the effort it takes for her to be vulnerable. I start attending couples therapy with her, an experience that's equal parts painful and cathartic. One session, in particular, stands out. The therapist asks Emily to recount the emotional affair and how it began. As she speaks, her voice trembling with shame, I feel a surge of anger and heartbreak all over again. But instead of lashing out, I listen. For the first time, I hear her explain the loneliness and insecurities that led her down that path. It's not an excuse, she says, looking directly at me. It's just the truth. And I hate that I let it get to this point. The therapist turns to me. How does that make you feel? I take a deep breath, my fists clenched in my lap. It hurts, I admit, but I appreciate the honesty. I don't know if I can ever feel the same way about her again. Emily's face crumples, but she nods. I'll keep working, she says softly, even if it takes years. Her determination is both comforting and overwhelming. The road ahead feels impossibly long, but for the first time, I see the possibility of a future where we might find our way back to each other. At home, we begin setting boundaries to rebuild trust. Emily shares her phone and social media accounts with me, offering full transparency. She deletes Alex's number and blocks him on every platform, a gesture that feels significant but not enough to erase the past. I, in turn, make an effort to engage more with her, to rebuild the connection that had withered over the years. We start having regular family dinners, something we hadn't done in ages. The kids notice the change, their laughter filling the house in a way that makes it feel less heavy. One evening, as we're cleaning up after dinner, Emily turns to me. I know this doesn't fix everything, she says, her voice quiet, but I hope it's a step in the right direction. I pause, the dish I'm holding still in my hand. It is, I admit, but there's still a long way to go. She nods, her expression a mix of hope and determination. I'm not going anywhere. Her words linger in the air as I finish the dishes and head upstairs. It's not forgiveness, but it's something. A fragile beginning. The days begin to blur into a cautious rhythm, a fragile balance between the past and the hope for something new. Emily and I navigate this uncharted territory with tentative steps, careful not to misstep and undo what little progress we've made. One evening, as we're putting the kids to bed, Sophie calls me into her room. Daddy, she whispers, clutching her stuffed bear. Are you mad at Mommy? Her question catches me off guard. I glance at Emily, who's standing in the doorway, her expression unreadable. "No, sweetheart," I say softly, sitting on the edge of Sophie's bed. "Why would you think that?" She shrugs, her little face serious. "You don't hug her as much anymore. And you don't laugh together like you used to." The observation stings because it's true. I look at Emily again, and for a brief moment, I see the pain in her eyes. "Sometimes grown-ups forget to show how much they care," I tell Sophie, brushing a strand of hair from her face. "But we're working on it." Satisfied with my answer, she hugs me tightly before settling into bed. Emily lingers as I walk out of the room, her voice barely above a whisper. "Thank you." I nod, the moment too fragile for words. Later that night, as I lie awake in the guest room, Emily knocks softly on the door. "Can I come in?" I hesitate before answering. "Yeah." She steps inside, her arms crossed over her chest. "I've been thinking about what Sophie said," she begins, "about how we don't laugh together anymore. I miss that." I sit up, watching her carefully. "I miss it too," I admit, "but it's not something we can force. It has to come naturally." She nods, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. "I know. I want to try." Her vulnerability disarms me, and for the first time in weeks, I feel a flicker of warmth toward her. "Then let's try," I say, my voice softer than I intended. The next weekend, we take the kids to the park. Emily brings a picnic, something she hasn't done in years. As we sit on the blanket watching Daniel and Sophie play, I catch her smiling at me. It's not the hesitant, guarded smile I've grown accustomed to, but something real, something reminiscent of the Emily I fell in love with. "What?" I ask, raising an eyebrow. "Nothing," she says, shaking her head. "It's just, it feels nice. Being here. Being together." I nod, unable to deny that it does. The laughter of the kids, the warmth of the sun. It all feels like a small step toward normalcy. That night, as we clean up after dinner, Emily surprises me. "Do you remember that Italian place we used to go to? The one with the terrible service but amazing tiramisu?" I chuckled despite myself. How could I forget? We spent half our dates there waiting for food. She smiles, a hint of mischief in her eyes. "What if we went back? Just the two of us?" The suggestion catches me off guard. It feels too soon, too risky. But the look in her eyes, the hope, the longing, makes it hard to say no. "Maybe," I say cautiously. "Let's see how things go." She nods, accepting my answer without pushing. It's a small moment, but it feels significant. As the days turn into weeks, we start rediscovering small joys together. Family movie nights, cooking dinner side by side, even working in the garden. All things we used to take for granted but now feel like victories. It's not perfect, and there are still moments of tension, but the progress is undeniable. One evening, as we sit on the porch after the kids are asleep, Emily reaches for my hand. This time, I don't pull away. Her fingers intertwine with mine, and for the first time in a long time, it doesn't feel forced. It feels right. "We've got a long way to go," I say quietly. "I know," she replies, her voice steady. "But I'm not giving up. Not on us." Her words resonate, filling the silence between us with a tentative sense of hope. It's not a resolution, but it's a step, one that I'm finally willing to take with her. The weeks pass, each one a careful balancing act of rebuilding trust and rediscovering what brought us together in the first place. Emily continues her therapy, and I notice subtle changes in her, moments of clarity and accountability that give me cautious hope. She asks me questions about my day again, listens without distraction, and even offers to take on tasks she used to avoid, like helping Daniel with his science project. I, too, begin to soften, though I remain guarded. Every step forward feels like testing the weight on a fragile bridge, unsure if it will hold. I still sleep in the guest room most nights, but occasionally, I'll sit with her on the couch, sharing quiet moments after the kids are in bed. One evening, as we clean up after dinner, Emily breaks the silence. "I was thinking about what you said at the cabin," she begins, "about how we need to move forward as new versions of ourselves." I glance at her, intrigued. "And I've been trying to figure out what that looks like," she admits, drying a plate. Not just for us, but for me. Who I am, who I want to be, for you. For the kids, for myself. Her words catch me off guard. For so long, I viewed her actions through the lens of betrayal, but this feels different, like she's trying to rebuild herself from the ground up. What have you figured out? I ask. She sets the plate down, her expression thoughtful. That I want to be someone you can trust again. Someone who doesn't need validation from anyone else. I want to be a better wife, a better mother, a better version of me. Her sincerity is palpable, and for the first time, I feel the faintest crack in my armor. That's a good place to start, I say simply. Later that week, she surprises me again. I booked us a babysitter for Saturday, she says, her tone hesitant but hopeful. I thought we could go to that Italian place. If you're ready. I pause, caught off guard. Part of me wants to refuse, to cling to the safety of distance. But another part, the part that remembers the laughter and connection we once shared, urges me to take the chance. All right, I say finally. Let's do it. On Saturday, as we walk into the restaurant, the memories come flooding back. The dim lighting, the crowded tables, the faint smell of garlic and wine. It's all exactly as I remember. Emily smiles nervously as we're seated, fidgeting with the menu like she doesn't know where to begin. This feels strange, she admits, breaking the silence. But in a good way. Yeah, I agree, glancing around the room. Like stepping back into a different time. We order our food, and the conversation starts slowly, like two strangers trying to find common ground. But as the evening progresses, the tension begins to ease. We laugh about old memories, share stories about the kids, and even tease each other like we used to. For a few hours, it feels like we've stepped out of the shadow of betrayal and into the light of something new. When the waiter brings the check, Emily reaches for it. My treat, she says, her eyes sparkling. I raise an eyebrow. Trying to impress me? Is it working? She asks, a playful smile tugging at her lips. I chuckle, shaking my head. Maybe. As we leave the restaurant, the cool night air wraps around us, and for the first time in months, I feel a flicker of something I thought I'd lost. Affection, maybe even love. It's faint, but it's there. Back home, as we check on the kids and get ready for bed, Emily lingers at the door to the guest room. Thank you, she says softly, for tonight, for giving us a chance. I nod, my heart conflicted but hopeful. Good night, Emily. Her smile is bittersweet as she walks away, and I lie down, staring at the ceiling. Tonight was a step forward, but I know the journey is far from over. Rebuilding trust takes time, effort, and patience. But for the first time, I believe it might just be possible. The days following our dinner feel lighter, as if the weight pressing down on our home has lifted slightly. It's not gone. There's still an undercurrent of unresolved pain, but for the first time in months, there's a sense of possibility. Emily continues her therapy and starts suggesting ways we can spend more time together as a family. What if we did a game night on Fridays? She proposes one evening as we clean up after dinner. The kids would love it, and it'd be nice to do something fun together. I nod, appreciating the effort she's making. That sounds good. The first game night is chaotic but fun. Daniel argues about the rules of Monopoly. Sophie tries to sneak money from the bank, and Emily and I team up to keep the peace. By the end of the night, we're all laughing, the tension between Emily and me momentarily forgotten. It's in these small moments, playing games, cooking together, watching a movie after the kids are asleep, that I begin to see glimpses of what we could be. Not the couple we once were, but something new, something stronger. But the shadows of the past aren't easily banished. One afternoon, as I scroll through my emails, I notice one from Mark. It's short and to the point. Mark, thought you'd want to know. Alex quit his tutoring gigs and moved out of town. Figured it might ease your mind. I sit back, processing the news. Alex's presence, even from a distance, had been a lingering thorn in my side. Knowing he's gone is a relief, but it doesn't erase the scars he left behind. That evening, I mention it to Emily. Mark told me Alex moved away. I say casually as we sit on the couch. Her reaction is immediate. Relief flashes across her face, followed by guilt. I didn't know, she says softly. But I'm glad. It'll make it easier for us to move forward. I nod, though the mention of Alex still stings. It doesn't change what happened, I say, my voice firm but not harsh. But it's one less thing to worry about. Emily reaches for my hand, her touch tentative. I know it doesn't change anything, but I'm here, and I'm trying. Her words resonate, and for the first time, I don't pull away. Instead, I let her hold my hand, the contact both comforting and unfamiliar. It's a small step, but it feels significant. As the weeks pass, I find myself opening up to her more. We talk late into the night, revisiting the parts of our marriage that worked and confronting the parts that didn't. It's not easy. There are moments when the pain and anger resurface, threatening to undo our progress, but we push through. One night, after a particularly emotional conversation, Emily looks at me with tears in her eyes. Do you think we'll ever be okay again? Her vulnerability catches me off guard. I pause, choosing my words carefully. I think we're on the right path, I say, but it's going to take time and trust. She nods, wiping her eyes. I'm willing to wait, as long as it takes. Her commitment gives me hope, but I know the road ahead is still uncertain. Trust isn't rebuilt in weeks or months. It's a slow, painstaking process. But for the first time, I feel like we're truly in it together. The next weekend, Emily suggests a hike with the kids. It'll be good for all of us, she says, her enthusiasm contagious. The hike is exactly what we need. The kids race ahead, laughing and exploring the trail, while Emily and I walk side by side. The air is crisp, the sun warm on our faces, and for a few hours, it feels like we've stepped into a version of our life untouched by betrayal. As we reach the summit, Emily turns to me, her face flushed from exertion. Thank you, she says simply. For what? I ask, genuinely curious. For still being here, she says, her voice filled with emotion. For giving us a chance. I look at her, the weight of her words sinking in. We're not there yet, I say honestly, but we're closer than we were. Her smile is bittersweet, but it's genuine. That's all I can ask for. As we head back down the trail, the kids chattering ahead of us, I feel a flicker of something I haven't felt in months, peace. It's fleeting, but it's there. And for the first time, I allow myself to believe that maybe, just maybe, we'll make it. The hike marks a turning point, but rebuilding our marriage is anything but straightforward. Some days, the progress feels tangible, like when we share a laugh over dinner or work together to solve a problem at home. Other days, the weight of what happened crashes down on me, leaving me irritable and withdrawn. Emily is patient, more patient than I expect. She gives me space when I need it and steps in when she senses I'm ready to engage. Her therapy sessions seem to be helping. She's more reflective, less defensive. I notice her making an effort to connect with the kids in ways she hadn't before, helping Daniel with his science fair project or braiding Sophie's hair while they watch cartoons. One night, as we sit on the couch after putting the kids to bed, Emily speaks up. I've been thinking about us, she says, her voice quiet. About what we want our life to look like moving forward. I nod, setting my book aside. And she hesitates, her hands twisting in her lap. I know I've hurt you, and I know I can't undo that, but I want to build something better with you. Not just for the kids, but for us. Her words hang in the air, and I take a moment to process them. I want that too, I admit, but it's going to take time. A lot of time. I know, she says quickly. I'm not expecting miracles. I want us to keep moving forward. The conversation feels like a breakthrough, a moment of clarity in the fog of uncertainty. For the first time, I start to think about what forgiveness might look like, not as a single moment, but as a gradual process of letting go. That weekend, we decide to tackle a project together, painting the kids' rooms. Daniel wants a blue and gray theme, while Sophie insists on purple with sparkly accents. The task is messy and chaotic, with paint splattered on floors, clothes, and faces. But by the end of the weekend, the rooms are transformed, and so is the energy in our house. You've got something on your cheek, Emily says, pointing to a streak of blue paint. So do you, I counter, smirking as I swipe a dab of purple onto her nose. She laughs, a sound I haven't heard in what feels like forever. For a moment, it feels like the weight of the past is lifted, replaced by the simple joy of the present. Later that night, as we sit on the porch with a glass of wine, Emily turns to me. Do you ever think about what brought us together in the first place? All the time, I say honestly, especially lately. She smiles wistfully. I miss that version of us, the way we used to be. We can't go back, I remind her gently, but maybe we can find something better. Her eyes fill with tears, but she doesn't look away. I hope so, she says softly. The conversation stays with me long after we go to bed. I know the road ahead is still fraught with challenges, but moments like these remind me why I'm still here, why I'm willing to fight for what we have. The next day, I find a note on my pillow, written in Emily's handwriting. Thank you for not giving up on us. I'll spend the rest of my life proving you made the right choice. Her words stir something in me, a mixture of hope and resolve. I tuck the note into my bedside drawer, a small reminder that while the journey is far from over, we're heading in the right direction. Not every day is filled with progress. Some days feel like steps backward, where the weight of Emily's betrayal resurfaces and gnaws at me. Despite her best efforts, there are moments when anger and doubt creep in, threatening to undo the fragile trust we're trying to rebuild. One such moment comes unexpectedly. I'm organizing files in my office when I stumble upon an old photo of Emily and me from our honeymoon. We're standing on a beach, the sunset casting a golden glow over us, our faces lit with unfiltered happiness. It feels like a different lifetime, a different relationship. The image brings a pang of sadness, but also anger, a reminder of how far we've fallen. That evening, Emily senses something is off. Is everything okay? She asks as we sit at the dinner table. Fine, I reply curtly, focusing on my plate. She doesn't press, but I can see the worry in her eyes. Later, as I sit in the living room flipping through channels, she joins me, her expression hesitant. You've been distant today, she says. Did something happen? I hesitate, debating whether to share what's on my mind. Finally, I decide honesty is the only path forward. I found an old photo of us, I say, my voice low. From our honeymoon. Her face softens, a small smile tugging at her lips. That was a good trip, she says. One of the best. It was, I agree. But looking at it now, it hurts. Because I don't know if we'll ever feel that way again. Her smile fades, replaced by a look of deep regret. I understand, she says softly. I feel that too sometimes. But I hope that we can create new memories, new moments that remind us why we're doing this. Her words are earnest, but they don't erase the ache in my chest. I'm trying, Emily, I say. But some days, it feels like I'll never be able to move past it. I know, she says, her voice breaking. And I hate that I caused this. I hate that I hurt you. The raw emotion in her voice tugs at something deep inside me. I don't have the energy to reassure her, but I don't push her away either. Instead, we sit in silence, the weight of the conversation settling between us. The following day, I decide to channel my frustration into something productive. I take the kids to the park, leaving Emily at home to catch up on errands. Watching Daniel and Sophie play, their laughter filling the air, reminds me of what's at stake, of why I'm still here, fighting for our family. When we return home, Emily greets us with a tentative smile. How was the park? She asks. Good, I reply, my tone softer than the night before. The kids had fun. As the evening unfolds, I notice her making an extra effort, helping with homework, preparing everyone's favorite snacks, even sitting with me to watch a show she normally wouldn't care about. It's a small gesture, but it doesn't go unnoticed. Later that night, as we get ready for bed, she pauses in the doorway of the guest room. I know yesterday was hard, she says, but I'm not giving up, even on the hard days. Her determination is humbling, and for a moment, I feel a flicker of something resembling gratitude. Neither am I say quietly. The journey is far from linear, but moments like this remind me that setbacks are part of the process. As long as we're both willing to keep trying, there's a chance we can find our way back to something stronger. A month later, Emily and I find ourselves navigating a fragile but steady rhythm. The trust isn't fully there yet, but the willingness to work on it is undeniable. Each day brings small steps forward, more laughter at the dinner table, shared glances that don't feel as heavy, and an ease in our conversations that hasn't existed for a long time. One night, after the kids are asleep, Emily suggests something that catches me off guard. "I want to write a letter," she says, sitting across from me at the dining table. "To you. About everything." "A letter?" I ask, raising an eyebrow. "Why not just tell me?" She looks down at her hands, her voice hesitant. "I think I express myself better in writing. I want to be completely honest, and sometimes it's hard to find the words when I'm looking at you." I lean back in my chair, considering her suggestion. "All right," I say finally. "If that's what you think will help." She nods, relief washing over her face. "Thank you." The next evening, she hands me the letter after dinner, her hands trembling slightly. "Take your time," she says softly. "Read it when you're ready." I wait until the house is quiet, the kids in bed and the dishes done, before sitting down in my office to read. The letter is long, written in Emily's neat, familiar handwriting. As I begin, her vulnerability leaps off the page. She writes about her insecurities, her feelings of inadequacy, and the loneliness that crept into her life when she felt like we were drifting apart. She acknowledges the emotional affair, taking full responsibility for the hurt she caused, and apologizes in a way that feels raw and sincere. But what strikes me most is the way she writes about us, the love we had, the life we built, and her hope for the future. She doesn't make excuses, nor does she minimize the pain. Instead, she paints a picture of someone desperate to rebuild, not just for me, but for herself. By the time I finish, my emotions are a tangled mess. Anger, sadness, hope, and something I can't quite name. I sit there for a long time, staring at the letter, unsure how to respond. When I finally step into the living room, Emily is waiting, her face pale and her hands clenched in her lap. "Did you read it?" she asks, her voice barely above a whisper. "I did," I say, sitting beside her. "And I appreciate it. It must have been hard to write." "It was," she admits, her eyes glistening. "But I meant every word." I nod, the silence between us heavy but not uncomfortable. "It's going to take time," I say finally. "But this helps." She exhales shakily, her shoulders relaxing. "I'm willing to wait, however long it takes." Her resolve is humbling, and for the first time, I feel the faintest stirrings of forgiveness. It's not full, not yet, but it's a start. "Thank you for being honest," I say. "It means a lot." As we sit there, the distance between us feels less insurmountable. We're far from where we need to be, but for the first time, I feel like we're on the same page. Over the next few weeks, I find myself rereading the letter. Each time, it feels like another layer of the hurt is stripped away, replaced by the possibility of healing. Emily continues her therapy, and we keep attending couple sessions, tackling the hard questions and the painful truths together. One night, as we're getting ready for bed, I hesitate at the doorway to the guest room. Emily is already in bed, reading, and for a moment, I consider walking away. But then I step into our bedroom, sitting on the edge of the bed. "Can I stay here tonight?" I ask quietly. Her eyes widen in surprise, but she nods quickly, her smile tentative. "Of course." As I settle into bed beside her, the space between us feels heavy with unspoken words. But for the first time in months, it also feels like home. Waking up next to Emily for the first time in months feels strange but comforting. The familiar rhythm of her breathing, the warmth of her presence. It stirs memories of what we once had, mixed with the lingering pain of what we've lost. As the sunlight filters through the curtains, I realize that this is more than just sharing a bed. It's a step, one of many, toward rebuilding what we broke. Over breakfast, Daniel and Sophie noticed the shift immediately. "Dad, why were you in Mom's room this morning?" Sophie asks innocently, her big eyes full of curiosity. I glance at Emily, who hides a small smile behind her coffee mug. "Because I wanted to be," I say simply. Sophie grins, satisfied with the answer, while Daniel gives me a knowing look. At 13, he's starting to understand more about relationships than I'm entirely comfortable with. As the days pass, life begins to settle into a new normal. Emily and I still attend therapy, and the sessions are often difficult, filled with tears, frustration, and uncomfortable truths. But they're also cathartic, helping us confront the cracks in our foundation and start to rebuild. One session stands out above the rest. The therapist asks us to write down one thing we want to change about ourselves for the sake of our relationship. Emily writes without hesitation, her pen moving quickly across the page. I take longer, grappling with what to say. When it's time to share, Emily goes first. "I want to stop seeking validation from others," she says, her voice steady. "I want to focus on being the best version of myself, for me, for you, and for our kids." Her honesty strikes a chord, and I find myself nodding. "I want to let go of the anger," I say, my voice quieter than I intended. "It's hard, but I know I can't hold on to it forever if we're going to move forward." The therapist nods, her expression encouraging. "Those are powerful commitments," she says. "Now it's about holding yourselves accountable and supporting each other through the process." Outside the office, as we walk to the car, Emily reaches for my hand. This time, I don't hesitate to take it. That night, we sit on the porch after the kids are asleep, a bottle of wine between us. The air is warm, the stars bright above us. It reminds me of the early days of our marriage, when we'd spend hours talking about everything and nothing. "Do you ever think about the future?" Emily asks, her voice soft. "All the time," I reply. "It's what keeps me going." She looks at me, her expression hopeful. "What do you see?" I pause, choosing my words carefully. "I see us stronger, more honest. I see us not just surviving this, but coming out better on the other side." Her eyes glisten, and she squeezes my hand. "That's what I want too." As the weeks turn into months, the changes in our relationship become more apparent. We laugh more, argue less, and tackle challenges as a team. The trust is still fragile, but it's growing, like a plant slowly pushing its way through rocky soil. One evening, as we sit with the kids watching a movie, I glance at Emily. She's smiling, her hand resting on mine, and for the first time in what feels like forever, I feel a sense of peace. Later that night, as we lie in bed, I turn to her. "I think I'm starting to forgive you," I say quietly. Her breath catches, and tears fill her eyes. "Thank you," she whispers. "That means more to me than you'll ever know." "It's not full forgiveness," I add. "Not yet, but I'm getting there." She nods, her tears spilling onto the pillow. That's all I could ever ask for. As I close my eyes, I realize that this journey, this painful, messy, imperfect journey, has brought us to a place I never thought we'd reach. It's not the end of the story, but it's a new chapter, one filled with hope, resilience, and the possibility of something even stronger than what we had before. This time, we're ready to face it together. Have you ever been through a challenge that tested the very foundation of your relationships? Share your story in the comments below. We'd love to hear how you found strength in the hardest moments. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more stories of resilience and redemption. Together, we can learn, grow, and inspire each other to keep moving forward. See you in the next story.